In this course, you will learn how to set up React Native. You will learn how to install React Native. You will learn how to set up the developer environment using VS Code. And you will learn, of course, how to deploy your app you make onto an Android phone, as well as an iOS phone. You will also learn how to use the different simulators there is for iOS, and you will learn how to deploy it onto an Android emulator as well. You will also learn how to edit and change the project inside of React Native, and how to see the changes you make instantly and the different ways you can see them. I hope you will enjoy the course, and if you have any questions or comments, then feel free to message me or use whatever comment section or question and answer section there is. If you're on Udemy and wish to leave less than 5-star review, then please do message me and write what you think I could improve about the course. I hope you will enjoy the course, and I'll see you. Okay, so every time I need to reinstall React Native, the first thing I do is I always Google React Native getting started. And usually the first result we see here is the result from the official Facebook GitHub page, facebook.github.io. And it says getting started, React Native, Facebook code. So I click in here, and inside here, I can see the official documentation for how to get started in React Native from Facebook. So there is 2 ways that you can make a React Native app today. There's the Expo way and there's the React Native CLI way. In the beginning, when I was using React Native, there was only one way, which was the React Native CLI way. And at some point, they added the Expo way. So the difference between the 2 ways is that using this Expo way, which is inside the Quick Start tab with the Create React Native app, you install an Expo client on your iOS or Android phone. So this is like an app you can download on the App Store or Play Store. And you install that, and then you can run your React Native project inside of this client. So it's sort of a third-party abstraction on top of all this React Native stuff we have. Now, I personally prefer to use the React Native CLI way to make my project from the start, which is inside of this Building Projects with Native Code tab. And well, in here we need to install more things, and if you're developing for Android, you need to install Android Studio, and if you're developing for the iPhone, you need to install Xcode and so on, compared to if you're using Expo, you just need to install Expo and you can get running. But if you need to make some kind of a serious app, you need to eject your Expo app, as they call it, and make it into a React Native CLI app anyway. So in the end, I kind of think it confuses people more. I am sorry if this is confusing to you already. I try to make it as simple as I can, but basically what I'm saying is that go with React Native CLI, because I think that's the fastest way. It runs faster, I believe, than the Expo. It is enabling you to support third-party modules, such as Airbnb's React Native Maps. If you want to use Maps, for example, they have their own API of inside Expo for Maps, but that's just one thing that they actually support. And well, that's another expectation on top of React Native Maps, so it's kind of more confusing. I get confused just talking about all this, and I just wish they didn't do it. I wish they just stuck with the React Native CLI way, because it's just going to work, even though it takes more time to set up your environment this way. But I don't think it's that much more than compared to the Xcode, Expo way. I've linked to an article also on Medium with a guy who is Paul SE, who talks about his experience of Expo versus the React Native CLI way. And he, of course, recommends just going native from the start. He says he wish he did that. He feels like adding another layer of interaction and complexity to an already complicated stack, and that's pretty much how I feel about it also. Okay, so with that being said, let's just go ahead, guys, and I will show you how to get running on our first React Native app. So make sure to select the Building Projects with Native Code tab inside Getting Started. And in here, you can see that you have different options depending on what platform you're on. So your development operating system, which in my case is Mac OS, and my target OS, which can be iOS or Android, depending on what phone platform you want to develop for. And there's different instructions depending on if you're targeting iOS or Android in here, because for Android you need to install, for example, the JDK or the Java and Android Studio, and on iOS you need to install Xcode, and you also need to get started running a iPhone simulator. Okay. Remember that if you're on Windows, you can't develop for iOS in the React Native CLI way. Likewise with Linux, you also can't develop for iOS. You can only develop for Android on both Linux and Windows. So that's the advantage of being on Mac OS, is that you can develop for both iOS and Android. Now I think we will want to start with Mac OS and iOS, so we follow these instructions, get it running on both the simulator and on our physical phone. Once we are done with that, we want to go onto Android and get it running inside the Android simulator and on our Android phone. Okay, so with that being said, let's get started. The first thing I need to do is I need to install something called Homebrew. We recommend installing Node and Watchman using Homebrew. So I go in here in the link and basically just copy that and paste it into a terminal. So I go Command space and type terminal, press enter, and I think I want to make that big for you. Inside here, I paste it in. Voila. And the script is going to install the Homebrew for me, so I can install things like Node very easy inside macOS. So I just press return because I want to install it. Press my password. Press enter again. And now it starts installing it. Okay, so now the installation of Homebrew is successful. It is done installing it, and I can go back to the Facebook page, run the commands they want us to run. Make that large again. So that is pre-install Node and pre-install Watchman. And I'm just going to go ahead and see if I can run that in my terminal. I paste it in here. Here's Node. So that's pre-install Node. Okay, and then we run the other command, which is pre-install Watchman. Okay, so that was pretty fast. Now we got Watchman and Node installed. Node comes with something called npm, which lets you install the React Native CLI and also lets you install lots of other modules that you might want to use in your apps that you can just download or, well, use npm to install. And then we need to run the following command in the terminal, npm install /g React Native CLI. So React Native CLI is the command line interface we use to create projects and do lots of React Native stuff. And the G is just to make it global, so you can use it anywhere around in your terminals. Let's go and run that command. I'll just clear this and npm install /g React Native CLI. Boom. Then it's going to get the package and install it. Okay, so that was fast. Now we got the React Native CLI installed. Now we need to install Xcode since we're developing for the iOS platform. The easiest way to install Xcode is via the Mac App Store. So we click on the link here. I think that's the safest way. And I select View in Mac App Store. I say Open App Store. Then the window pops up on another screen. So I'll drag it over here. And inside the App Store here, I can see there's Xcode, and I will just get that and install it. It's kind of big. It's 5.25 gigabytes, so it's gonna take a little while to get this, but hang in there. Oh, and need to sign in my App Store also, so I will just do that. So we installed Xcode now. And now we need to install the Xcode command line tools. I am going to go into the Xcode menu up here, and I will select Preferences. And then we are going to go into Locations. And then we select command line tools, and there seems to be only one option, so that's pretty easy. Has already installed it. Now that the command line tools is installed inside of our Xcode, we can actually start to make our first project in React Native using the React Native init command, and our project name, in this case we will be calling it Awesome Project. And then we are actually ready to just go into the directory and run it inside of our iOS simulator. So let's get going. Let's go inside the terminal. I have my terminal running here. So React Native init Awesome Project. now the build has succeeded. It can take a long time the first time you run your project. When you run iOS as well as for Android, but that is only the first time you start up a new project. So let's go and see what we have here. We have the simulator itself, of course, with the React Native app running. In this case, it is the iPhone 6 simulator we are running in here, but you can also decide if you want to use another device. I always Google this, React Native select simulator. Here we go, running on simulator, specifying a device. So if you want to run it on the iPhone X, for example, you need to run this command instead and point out what version you want. And you can check the available devices by running this command, which I can never remember for good reasons, I think. So in here we can see all the different iPhone devices I can run. And for example, if I want to run on the, let's say the iPhone X, I basically just copy that name and I run React Native run iOS simulator iPhone X, like so. Okay. Now we have the app running, of course, but we are not actually doing anything to the app. We're not changing it or coding or anything because, well, we don't have our editor or IDE environment set up yet, which we are going to do in the next section. Okay, so we have our app running inside the simulator, but we are not really having any editor or development environment up and running yet. So the most popular one is called Visual Studio Code from Microsoft, and it's a more lightweight version of Visual Studio. It's really great. I have tried Atom also from GitHub, and I also tried WebStorm, but I prefer to use Visual Studio Code, and that's also the most popular one for the community. So it's a free editor from Microsoft. It's available for both Linux and Windows and Mac OS. It has a lot of cool extensions you can use to be more productive, and of course some IntelliSense. So it's a really great editor. So let's go ahead and download that. And we are getting it now. So this is like a zip file I'm expanding now. And yeah, so I'm just gonna drag this into my applications. And run it. So now I have enlarged the font inside of the editor so you guys can more easily see what I am doing. So you can say open folder in the welcome page, or you can go inside file and say open. And inside here, if you're not on your home directory already where we created the file before, you can go Command Shift H and you can select the awesome project that we made before if you made it inside your home directory. In here we can see all the files that we created using React Native in it. So let's go ahead and open that. Now in here we can see there's an Android folder, There's an iOS folder, there's a Node modules folder, and there's various hidden files with a dot in front, and there's the app.js and the index.js files. Now the app.js and the index.js files is the most interesting files for us right now, because it's in here that we can edit our app itself from the get-go. Now let's try and change some text inside of the app, and we will see the changes as they appear inside of our simulator. We are going to change the text in the text component here, which says welcome to React Native. We are going to change that to welcome to my awesome app. And we're going to press Command S to save the file. And you can see there is nothing happening inside. Reload way. Now live reloading is enabled. I can see it's enabled because I can disable it now. And I will go and write some text in here under the to get started. I will write, this is awesome. And you can see as I press Command S, it automatically reloaded the app, and my text appeared underneath here. And that's called live reload. Now the second way, which is called hot reloading, we are going to try now. In order to do that, you need to first disable live reload. And then you need to go back again and press on enable hot reloading. Now let's try and see what hot reloading is about. So I enter some text in here again, and I press Command S, and now you can see here it instantly changed the text in here without reloading the whole app. In this small app, you might not be able to see it so well, but if you're in a large app where you have been navigating through a lot of things, and you are at the end of some hierarchy or something in the site and navigation, you pressed a lot of buttons, menus, and so on, and you want to make a change. If you're in live reloading, it's going to reload the whole app from the start after you make your change. But if you're using hot reloading, it's going to only make the change where you put it exactly, without loading the whole app. So that's a big advantage if you're sitting on a larger app with a deep navigation hierarchy and so on. Then you can instantly see your changes without reloading the whole app. Now I think we should try and get this app running, this really awesome app we made inside of our physical iPhone, and let's see how we do that. We are going to be deploying onto a real physical iPhone. So in my case, I just have an old iPhone 5, but you're free to use, of course, any kind of new or old iPhone you have. Yeah, as long as you have it connected with a lightning cable to the USB onto your Mac. And then the first thing I always do is I always search for running on device and React Native. So if you search here, running on device, React Native, and we see here the first result, as always, from Facebook code, running on device, React Native again, and we check the first one. And in here, we can see, again, similar to the other page, we have our phone operating system, iOS, Android, and we have our developing operating system, so macOS, Linux, Windows, and so on. And again, you can't build your app for iOS on Windows, except for if you are using the Create React Native app, which I discussed earlier, has a couple of limitations. But let's go on and look on macOS, which I am on now, and we develop for the iPhone. So we see first here we say plug your device in via USB, which we already did now. And then we need to navigate to the iOS folder in our project, the awesome project. And we need to open the Xcode proc file using Xcode. And if it's your first time running the app using an iOS device, you may need to register your device for development. And again, they explain how to register it for development here. Now, registering for development doesn't cost you any money to do on the iPhone. It is when you need to publish on the App Store itself that you have to pick up $150 or I think it's $150 or something like that, or $100 to be able to publish apps on the App Store. But you can play around with it as much as you want to in this development phase. So enough talking, let's get on to Xcode. So we go in Open, and again I press Command-Shift-H to go to my home directory where I had the project. Go inside Awesome Project, and then I need to go inside the iOS folder, and in here we can see the awesome project.xcode proj. So I go ahead and open that. Okay, so the project is open now. You can see that my iPhone is enabled here. It says Maria Christine because that's my girlfriend's name. It's her iPhone. Let's see, it also needs to do some indexing. That can take some time as well. Now, since it's the first time running our app, we need to register the device for development. So open the product menu from your Xcode's menu bar and go to destination. And we select our device from the list. Mine is called Maria Christine's iPhone. Also register for an Apple developer account if you don't have one yet. So again, it doesn't cost you anything, but it's only once you want to publish an app that you have to pocket up some money. I think I already have a developer account. I should have. And we go inside of the General tab, which is already selected. And we go to signing, which is in here. Requires a development team. So I think I just need to select add account. Okay, so this is where I enter in my Apple ID. So now the account has been added, and of course I have passed the step of actually making the account, but it's pretty straightforward. repeat this step for test target in your project. Okay. Let's see. So now I can select team underneath here, which is just me, personal team, like so. Now it's creating the certificate. Failed to create provisioning profile. Cannot be, please change your bundle identifier to a unique string and try again. So let me just check if I'm wrong here or if this is a general error. I will just change it in here to awesome projectness, like so, and I'll try again. Let's see if it works now. So clicking the small arrows right here, I can select the targets awesome project, which we just did now. And I can also select the test target here. And inside here again, I will choose my personal team. This time it went smoothly. I didn't need to change anything. And that's it. Now we can build and run the app. If everything is set up correctly, you can now press the build and run button. So yeah, let's build and run it on the iPhone I selected over here. And now it's gonna compile it and build it and so on. And hopefully I will see it running on the iPhone shortly. I'm back again. The build has almost completed, but now I see that this code sign wants to access key access in your keychain has popped up, and I tried to enter my usual Mac password and press allow, but unfortunately it kept coming back. So maybe you will have the same error when you try to do this. And I tried looking on Stack Overflow, and some people suggested just to say always allow. So I'm going to try that now. Let's see if it works. And it looks like it worked. Okay, so let's see if it's going to finish soon, and we will see the app running on the iPhone. Okay, so build succeeded, running on Maria Christine's iPhone. After I restarted my phone and I restarted Xcode, I got this prompt over here saying that I need to verify the developer app certificate on my account to start running the app we have. So in order to do that, I need to go inside of the settings in here. Oh, sorry. The settings. And then I need to go inside of device management here. It's down at the bottom of the general tab. So I go in here, there's my email that I use as my Apple developer email. And we tap here. And then I need to select that I'm trusting this developer. So I tap I trust. And now I trust this developer and I can run the app. So now we finally have the app, the app running on the actual physical iPhone. The different thing about a physical iPhone compared to the simulator is that you need to shake it in order to access the dev menu. Usually on the simulator, we could press Command D to access the developer menu, but on the physical phone, you actually need to shake it. So let me try and shake it. Need to shake it pretty hard. Let me just... Okay, there we go. So then the menu came up, And I have the same selection that we saw inside of the simulator, like live reloading and hot reloading. Now, in order to be able to run your apps without having a cable inside the physical phone and show it off to your customer or your friends, then you need to build a release build instead of a debug build. And the way to do that is you need to go inside of the product menu inside of Xcode and go into the scheme and then go inside of edit scheme. There's also a shortcut here you can use for future use, and you click here. Then inside here, inside of build configuration, you can select release. Then you can just close it and you can build the project again. And now in the release build, the JavaScript bundle is going to be inside of the app itself so that it doesn't need the connection to your computer via the cable or Wi-Fi. So that's it. Now you can go out and show your friends the awesome app that you have made. For Android, we need to be installing the Java Development Kit and Android Studio, compared to iOS, where we just needed to install Xcode. Now, when we installed iOS, we already installed the Node and Watchman from Homebrew, and so we don't need to be doing that inside the Android section. The same as well with the React Native CLI, which we installed via npm install. We already installed that. So, but if you haven't done the iOS section and jumped straight ahead to the Android section, I suggest that you install this. Well, you have to install it to proceed. Now we need to install the Java Development Kit. We need to have version 8 or higher, so we go ahead and do that. I go inside the link page, I accept the license agreement, and I get the macOS Java installation. Then while that is downloading, I will just see on the Android development environment section here, we need to download and install Android Studio. So we go ahead and do that. Now the Java Development Kit has downloaded successfully, so I'll go ahead and click that and install it. And well, it's pretty straightforward to install it. Now the installation was successful. I moved the installer to trash. And that was it. Now we have the Java Development Kit installed. Now let's see about Android Studio. So notice they say choose a custom setup when prompted to select an installation type. And we need to make sure the boxes in here are selected. So I'll drag the Android Studio to my applications. Now Android Studio has finished installing into my applications and I can run it in here. And I want to open it. I'm sure it's safe. Let's see, I don't want to import any settings. Okay, so this is a setup wizard for Android Studio. I just click next. And this is the point where the React Native tutorial suggested that we use the custom setup. So I go ahead and I select custom. And I prefer a docked theme always, but I'm not going to be using Android Studio so much. We are going to be using the Visual Code editor most of the time when we are developing in React Native. So I go and select that, and then we need to make sure we have the right boxes checked. You can see you need to install the SDK, Android SDK, which is already checked for us, the Android SDK platform, and the performance, Intel Haxum, and Android Virtual Device. So basically all of them get checked off. Then I click next and we start installing it. And this is how much RAM I want to use for my emulator. I'll just go with the recommended RAM. And here I can review my installation, and I'm fine with that, and choose finish. So now it's going to download all the components that I selected, such as the Android virtual device and so on, and we'll get back to the installation in a moment. Now the Android packages have finished installing, and I will just click finish. Then we see this welcome to Android Studio window. So it says that Android Studio by default installs the latest Android SDK. But when you build a React Native app in Android, you need to use the Android 6 Marshmallow SDK. And this can be installed through the SDK manager in Android Studio. So we go in this welcome screen and we click the configure and go inside SDK manager. Then inside here, let's see, we need to find the Android 6 entry, and we need to select inside the SDK platforms, and we need to select the show package details. So now we need to go looking for Android 6. Here we go, Android 6 Marshmallow. And we need to make sure the following items are checked. So we have Google APIs, Android SDK Platform 23, Intel Atom 64 system image, and Google API Atom 64 system image, which is this one. So those are the 4 packages that I need to install to be able to use React Native on Android. Then I click apply. Actually, I need to also go into the SDK tools tab in here, and I need to click on show package details as well. And then we need to look for the Android SDK build tools, and we need to make sure that 23.01 is selected. So we go and look for the 23.01, which is here underneath the build tools over here. And that's it. Then we need to click apply, and it's going to fetch the packages that we selected. Need to accept some license agreements in here, and then it's going off to download it. So we need to set up some environment variables, which is the Android home variable, and we need to add the following to our bash profile config. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, and then I will go inside of my bash profile. And I don't think I have one right now, so I'm just actually going to create it. And then I'm going to paste it inside and save it using command O. Control O, and press enter and exit on Control X. So I went a little fast here because I'm used to using this tool, but I used the tool called Nano, and I press bash profile. I enter bash underscore profile. Now the file wasn't made before for me because I'm on a totally fresh system. So when you have that, just do that. Paste in the variables here inside, and then you press, again, I will say it again, Control O to write the file, and then enter to save it. File name to write, it's okay, and then you save it, and then you can press Control X to exit nano. Then we can type source to load the config into your current shell. So let's try and do that. I'll try and see if I can just use bash profile like this. I need to remove the backslash, I think, like so. And let's try and write echo path, if I can find my $sign, like that, echo path. So you can see it looks like the Android SDK tools is inside of our path variable now. So it looks like everything is okay. Then we can start using the React Native init and so on. But now I'm going to wait for the packages inside of Android Studio to finish installing before I go on to the next step, which is getting some sort of Android device or Android emulator running the React Native app we have. The installer has finished installing all of the Android packages now for the SDK. I'm going to close this down. Now we have the section under here for creating a new application, but we already did that. We already made a awesome project in the iOS section, but if you haven't done that, go ahead and do it now. So you can use the physical device, or you can use an emulator. First, we are going to try and make it run on the emulator, and then we're going to try and run it on the physical device, just like with the iOS section. So you can see a list of available Android virtual devices in the AVD manager from within Android Studio. To get to this icon, you need to start a new Android Studio project. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to find a quicker way to access AVD Manager. There is some way, but let's just keep it simple. I'm going to just create a blank project. I don't care really what the settings in here because I just want to access the menu inside of Android Studio. Going to click add no activity, but I just want the project to be as small as possible. Let's see if it's starting up now. It looks like it's building the project now. Now the project has finished, almost in building and so on. I just want to be able to click this little AVD icon up in here. You can see they also show the icon here. And I click it, well, it's over here in the right side of the Android Studio. I click it here. Now this is the virtual device manager, the AVD. And here we can see an Android 8 phone Nexus, but I want to create one with the Android Marshmallow, the Android 6. So we go ahead and create virtual device. That's just the device definition. So I'm just gonna go with a really crappy 480 by 800. So I click next here, and then I need to go inside the x86 images and choose Marshmallow using the Google API. So I click next here, and then I will call the AVD React Native AVD. And that seems like that was that. I don't really want to have the device frame around the emulator, so I'll click that off. So now I click finish, and now it's creating the AVD. It can take a little while. Then we have the AVD here. Then we can click the green arrow here and start the emulator. So we see it starting up over here. Now once the emulator is up and running, we can run the React Native run Android command inside of the awesome project, and it should be running inside of our emulator. Now my emulator is up and running. I have this welcome screen. I will just click got it. I'm going to go inside of my terminal. I will go inside of the awesome project folder that we have. Awesome project. One we made with using React Native init. And in here, I'm going to run React Native, run Android. So this is going to run it on the Android devices versus run iOS, which is running it on the iOS devices. So run Android, and we should be seeing it starting to run on the emulator. Now, just like the iOS project that we have, the first build you do on this React Native project is usually going to be quite slow, but as you do the next build, it's going to be much faster. Now the bundler has started up as we ran React Native run Android, and the project was built in 2 minutes 40 seconds, and it uploaded the app inside of our emulator. So now we have our app running in here, and you can also see it's a bit different text that's going to come up in here because there was in the code a bit of a platform specific text that they inserted in the starter project, where you can go and check that out inside of Visual Studio Code if you want to. And so for Android, you use Command M to go inside of the developer menu. It's the same options as you have in the iOS, but it's a different shortcut. On the iOS, it's Command D. On Android, it is Command M. And you double tap R to reload. Okay, so that was it for the emulator section of Android. I think it went pretty good, and it's not so painful as you can make it out to be. And once you have all this SDK stuff, emulator stuff up and running, you basically have so that you can run React Native apps in the future and just use React Native init to make new projects as you go, and you don't have to do all the setup with the Android SDK packages and so on. So in the next section, we are going to be running it on the real physical Android device. In this building projects with native code inside of the getting started documentation, we also have a little section about deploying to physical devices inside the Android section on macOS. I was gently skipping that section because I wanted to do it on the emulator first, but let's look more into it now. So let's see down here. We have preparing the Android device using a physical device. You plug it in using a USB cable, just like you would for charging and so on. So we are on the macOS, and I want to deploy the app onto Android. So in order to do that, I need to enable USB debugging on my Android device. And I will show you in a moment how to do that. Now I have a screen mirroring of my actual phone onto the Mac, so I can show you what we are going to do to enable USB debugging. Now you need to enable USB debugging because you're going to be installing apps that's not from Google Play. And to do that, we need to go inside of the settings. So I will tap the settings, and then you need to go down to the bottom, and there's going to be a about phone section. I tap that. Then I need to go all the way down, and then I need to tap the build number 7 times in a row. And then it's going to say something like, you are now 3 taps away from being a developer. You're now so many taps away, and in the end, congratulations, at the 7th tap, you are now a developer. Now it's saying, no need, you're already a developer because I already done this step before on my phone. After you have tapped this build number 7 times, you will have a new menu in your settings, which is called the developer options. So we go back, and then we have the developer options menu in here. I go ahead and tap that. Then I have some new options in here that I can enable, disable. In this case, we need to enable the USB debugging so we can start running our apps via the USB. So I go ahead and enable that. I press OK, and we now have some USB debugging already because I have a cable connected. So I want to trust this computer I have connected, like so. Now let's see. Now we can check inside of the terminal if we actually have the physical device connected. So we'll type ADB devices. Oh, let's see. It looked like kind of looked like something failed here. ADB server doesn't match the client. Okay, I will go ahead and look up on this error and come back. Now I postponed my fixing of the ADB error on the version mismatch, and I've had my Mac Mini shut down for a while, and now that I started it up and thought, okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and figure out what is wrong with this error, the error has disappeared. So I'm not suggesting that you guys, if you have this error, you need to have your Mac shut down for a couple of days, but apparently the issue has just solved itself for me. I'm guessing there was some sort of extra ADB service running in the background, and well, apparently there was a mismatch between those versions. I think I tried to restart the Mac Mini as well, but I seem to remember it didn't help. But anyway, the error is gone for me, at least. Unfortunately, I can't really help you guys if you have the same error, but there's definitely some post about it on Stack Overflow. So, but try restarting, try something like that. Maybe not having the Mac off for a few days. I'm guessing you need to have some work done as soon as possible, but maybe try restarting or something similar to that. If not, try and search for the error on Stack Overflow if you get the same error as I had. So back to the track again, we can type ADB devices to see the devices we have connected. Now the ID that's standing over here is not that recognizable for me. I have a Sony Xperia, but it doesn't really ring any bell, that name to me. So now I'm gonna try and disconnect it and see if it's different. Now I see no devices attached. And now I try to plug it in again. And let's see. Now it shows back again. So this is the device I plugged in, I can see here. Now I'm already in the awesome project folder that we made using React Native init. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to run this on my physical device because I have the device plugged in on USB, and it should be running on the device automatically. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so this time the building was really fast because we already ran the build before on the emulator that took like 2 minutes. Now it's only taking around 30 seconds. And I can see the app running on the physical phone now. So again, if you want to access the developer menu, you have to shake it rather ferociously. So like that. And then I have the developer menu exactly like the iOS devices and the Android emulator. And it's the same settings as usual. So that concludes the React Native environment setup course that we have here. If you are not familiar with the React.js or the React language or library, then not language because that's called JSX or JavaScript ES6, but I recommend that you start digging into a course specifically for that. You can even try, I will recommend that you just go straight to React Native. You don't need to look at React.js first. If you're coming already from React.js, then React Native is gonna look really familiar to you and you'll be able to jump into it very fast. So that concludes the course for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask in either the YouTube comments or on my Facebook page or on the Udemy course question and answers. I'm trying to look through the questions as much as I can and answer them. So if you have any other topics or things concerning React Native that you'd like me to teach about, then let me know and I will look into it.